Morning, friends. Good morning, family. Pastor Nate Borman here, one of the pastors at Mount Lebanon Lutheran Church. I'm here for a daily devotional thought. Here to give you some encouragement and some hope from our God as we live in this world. And I think, actually I don't think, I know that this is something that our world that we desperately need. I'm out here in Oregon right now for my little brother Paul's installation into the ministry of being a pastor. Yesterday we took a drive through downtown Portland, and it's just heartbreaking. We were in a part of town where there were all kinds of things that collided. My sister said there was a bougie part. And then there was a large homeless, houseless population of people, and boarded up buildings and graffiti and just a lot of brokenness. Good morning, Tracy. And just, we live in troubled times. We live in troubled days, and our hearts, our hearts are shaking inside of us. And I want to bring a word of hope and a word of encouragement to you this morning as we live in these troubled and unsettled days. And that's what Daniel needed. Daniel, if you read to the very end of Daniel chapter 7, I shared the verse and I actually gave the reading. Daniel gets to the very end of this chapter and he says, Daniel was troubled. And I get it, I get why Daniel was troubled and upset. He says he kept the matter to himself. I get it, because Daniel saw visions of the end. He saw visions of the days that we're living in. He saw visions of beasts that were destroying people, that were destroying lives, that were bringing and wreaking havoc in this world. He saw visions that terrified him and troubled him. And I think, Christians, we have to realize this about these days. We are living in the end days. We don't need to be too specific about it, but we do need to realize that we do, and we are living in the end days. And Jesus talks about those days. Again, I left this in the description. Jesus says about these days that they're going to get worse and worse and worse. They're actually going to get so bad that even the elect would fall. But then he says that's not possible. So there is a reason that we're troubled. There's a reason that we're distressed. There is a reason that we're anxious and are full of anxiety, because we are living in the last days. That's as real now as it's ever been, and the end is closer now than it was just a second ago. So we have visions like Daniel's. We have moments like these in our seasons like these in our lives, and God. One of the things I think God is doing for us, He's saying, "Hey guys, wake up, pay attention." See the signs of my coming and know that I'm coming. I'm coming back for you, and I'm coming very soon. So there is in this world a great reason for distress. I get it. We're living in the end days, and these are not easy days. They are difficult, and they're only going to get more difficult. But the other thing that comes out of a chapter like this, where you see visions and you see Jesus on his throne and you see the kingdom given to God's people, and you see victory declared. I didn't do a devotion yesterday, but read yesterday's devotion. It's God declared victory. The devil was beating us down. He was beating us down. It looked like we were down for the count, and then Jesus came in and he declared victory for us, right? So on the other hand, while on the one hand there is reason for distress, on the other hand there is reason for comfort and encouragement, right? Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. Be faithful, Jesus said to the churches in Revelation 2. He says, "Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life." What your God has for you, no matter how hard or how distressing these days are, what your God has for you is a crown of life that is yours. It's already won for you. It's got your name on it. It's stored up for you in heaven. And when you make it, because you will make it, by God's power and with his Spirit's help, you will make it. We will make it. We will remain steadfast in the faith no matter what these days bring. Be faithful, he says, even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. That is his comfort and his encouragement to you. So don't be afraid. Let the stress wash away from your hearts. Let the anxiety and the fear and the upsetness that you feel, let all of that wash away from your heart, because you know that you have a crown of life waiting for you. And then I want to say a word about masks, the new mask mandate, and how we're going to abide by that at Mount Lebanon. Yesterday in the email, I think you should have it in your email box this morning. We also posted it on our website and on Facebook. If you didn't get it, please comment below, and we'll make sure that you get the full announcement. And there are two reasons why we're going to abide by the Milwaukee ordinance. One is love. One of the reasons that we do what we do, even though it's uncomfortable and inconvenient, is love. And the second is God has given us government authorities who are over us, and He tells us whether we like it or not to obey them, to honor them. And the only reason that we wouldn't do that is when they tell us to do something that disobeys God's word. And to this point, there's nothing that's been mandated that goes against what God teaches in His word. I want to add one more thing to love your neighbor and honor the government, and it's this, because I get and I hear you when you talk about how masks are an inconvenience out here in Oregon, and you can talk about the politics all you want. I'm not going to get there, but here in Oregon, they already live by the mask ordinance. I couldn't go into a grocery store if I didn't wear a mask. In fact, when you're walking on the streets, out of love for each other, I'm going to put that construction on it because I think it's true. Out of love for each other, people were always carrying their masks. And when they passed on the street, they either walked in the street, or they turned the other way, or they pulled their mask out and put it on. So there's a deep amount of love, and so I get the inconvenience. I flew here and I wore a mask the whole time, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't comfortable. My hair's already a mess, but it messed my hair up even more. It was awful. It's inconvenient, and I really do hear you who are saying that this is like we want to take a stand about our freedoms that we have as citizens of our country, and I think that's a legitimate conversation for us to have. I do wonder, however, whether a matter of health and safety is a place to take that stand. I don't want to go there either, but I do want to say this, that in matters like this, when I want to do something and my neighbor needs me, or my government tells me to do something else, remember what Jesus calls us to do. He says, I want you to take up your cross and follow me. Deny yourself. Which is to say, what Jesus calls us to as we follow him in this moment is we have to say no. When we start talking about Christian rights and freedoms, Luther has this in a great treatise called On the Freedom of a Christian. Maybe I'll do a Bible study on the basis of it sometime. But it's just wonderful, because on the one hand, Luther says the Christian, he has two statements, two theses. On the one hand, he says the Christian is a perfectly free Lord subject to no one. So in other words, you as God's children are queens and kings, are princes and princesses. You are subject to no one, he says. And this is the second thesis. The Christian is a perfectly dutiful servant subject to everyone. So what that means is love constrains us and makes us a servant. So in other words, when Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me, deny yourself, when Luther says that we are a perfectly dutiful slave, when Paul says to the Philippians, in humility consider others more than yourselves, value others more than yourself, when God tells us all of these things through his apostles and prophets and through fathers like Luther, he's really saying you have to, love actually calls us to give up our rights. I did that when I became a husband. I did that when I became a dad. I gave up my rights to do what I wanted when I wanted to, and for the good of my family, I give up my rights out of love. Right? And so what that means is Jesus is calling us to live sacrificially. And I want to help you see that in a very positive way. It's painful, right? It's inconvenient. I don't like it. But it's when we love sacrificially like that and we give up our rights, I want you to understand that that's worship. That's worship. When we love like that, when we sacrifice ourselves, that's a spiritual act of worship that we do because we're loved like we are. Right? In view, Paul says to the Romans, in view of God's mercy, offer up your bodies as living sacrifices. This is your spiritual act of worship. So I know it stinks. It's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. I know we feel like our rights are being taken away. I get it. There are definitely some conversations that we can have. But I want you to follow Jesus. I want to call you to follow Jesus right now and give up your rights for the good and out of love for other people. So the Lord be with all of you today and grant you his peace. It's going to be a great day wherever you are. The Lord be with you all and grant you his peace.